What's going on, Pack a Day members? Welcome into this Monday members only Q&A. A little bit different for us to have it on a Monday, but appreciate you guys being here and joining us as always. And of course, always appreciate the support and you guys signing up to be Pack a Day members. We'll get to as many questions as we can over the course of the next hour or so. Looks like we've got a lot of questions lined up already, so we can get to it right away. If you are listening to this after the fact as a non-member, I do open it up for non-members after the fact, so you guys can still listen to it, but definitely consider becoming a member if you are not already. And then you get to take part and, of course, ask all the questions as well. We will start with John Kramer. Says, did you see that Jim Irsay's daughter is going to be wearing a headset on the sidelines? Aren't we glad that Mark Murphy doesn't and Ed Policy presumably won't? There were a lot of takeaways from Ed Policy's initial discussion with the media and the things that he said, keeping the team in Green Bay and the contracts for Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst and those sort of things. The biggest takeaway should be that he very much wants to stay out of the business of Russ Ball, Brian Gutekunst, and Matt LaFleur. That is a huge win. That is something that you definitely want to see. He wants to hold everyone accountable, which is a huge part of his job. He wants to make sure he has the pulse of everything, which is a huge part of his job. He wants to make sure that he continues to open the lines of communication between Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, Matt LaFleur, and anyone else in the organization that needs to be, privy to that sort of communication. Those are all extremely positive things. Everything that I heard from Ed Policy was very positive overall. I think he is definitely, again, keeping everything trending in the right direction. And yes, very much so, John. Happy that the Packers do not have an owner meddling in things. As far as I don't know enough about the situation to know exactly the level of Jim Irsay's daughter and what it's going to entail and things like that. In and of itself, being interested in wanting to hear the play calls and things like that, there's nothing inherently wrong with doing something with it in, trying to get involved in game day and stuff like that would obviously be a nightmare. But if she's just listening for the sake of listening, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but still rather have it be this way where Ed Policy is staying out of all those situations. Regarding Ricky Rashid's story, if the Packers extend him before camp would be the most surprising thing of the offseason. Everything they've done suggests they won't, not before the season anyway. So again, regardless of whether or not the Rashid Walker thing with Ricky is legit or not, it's an interesting dynamic to think about and discuss. I think Zach Tom would clearly still be the favorite in the clubhouse to get sort of any early extension. We kind of heard a little bit from Brian Gutekunst on Zach Tom on Cheesehead TV when Goody was on about that. I think he probably is still a priority. There's ways where you can make it work, where Zach Tom stays, Rashid Walker stays, Belton, Morgan, and Aaron Banks as well. But you pretty much have to end up with Zach Tom at center in that situation, which I'm sure is not what the Packers or Zach Tom want. The idea in and of itself of extending Rashid Walker is not a terrible idea. And I think having the conversations to see where that price point is not a terrible idea. And if you can keep him on a reasonable deal, for example, right? If Rashid Walker right now, for some reason, is like, I will sign a 3-year, $36 million deal. I don't think there's any way he would do that. And I don't think there's any way his agent will let him do that. But if you can, you sign that so damn quick. It doesn't even matter. He could end up being your swing tackle for the next 3 years, and you sign that so damn quick. When Dan Moore is going for over $20 million per year, and Rashid Walker is better than Dan Moore, in my opinion, you just take that contract. So I don't mind having the contract discussions. I don't mind having the negotiations or anything like that. And if you can find a reasonable deal, by all means, wrap up good offensive linemen. That is good philosophy in general. I will definitely take a little bit more of the I'll believe it when I see it sort of approach to this entire situation. There's a piece of me that wonders if they got news that a Walker extension was near and they ran with it as Rashid Walker, but it was actually Quay Walker. There's a piece of me that actually kind of wonders that, but I digress. Either way, it would definitely be a little bit surprising, but for the right price point, I'm not against it. And you figure out the rest of the stuff later. You take Anthony Belton and Jordan Morgan, assuming that they're the best player available at the time, but also as a general manager, you understand a piece of this is going to be getting draft picks wrong. Like you have to go into every draft class knowing you're not going to nail every pick. And there's going to be some top 3 pick, you mean your first, second, third rounders that are just going to be completely incorrect. And you're probably going to hit some 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders here or there that are going to hopefully make up for some of those ones that you miss early on. But you don't know right now as a general manager what Jordan Morgan or Anthony Belton are going to turn into. At this point, they are very, unique depth pieces that still have high upside that you're hoping are going to become starters. But if you have the ability to wrap up good offensive linemen when you have them, you still do that. And you're going to need 6 or 7 every single year. So to me, if you get the right deal, you cross those other bridges when you get to them and you figure the rest of the stuff out later. And Green Bay is mostly going to be operating, I think, for the foreseeable future with wanting 6 to 7 caliber starting offensive linemen on their team every single year. So how you go about doing that is, you can do it in a variety of different ways, but it's not the worst thing in the world to have good offensive linemen under good contracts. Now, I don't expect, again, Rashid to take any hometown discount as of right now. He knows what he's worth on the open market. He will probably wait till next year. He'll probably get a huge contract from some other team, but I definitely agree with you more, John, in that I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to a Walker extension. I'm not sure if my question from earlier came in on the pack-a-day portion. Nags losing it over the offensive line conversations was amusing. Totally agree with him, though. I'm not sure I know the exact question or what you're referring to here, Ben. My apologies on that. But if you do have a question, just definitely let me know, and we can try to get to that before the end of the show here today. I can't remember last year, did Matt say why he hates 7-on-7s? Yeah, he mostly said something to the extent of that it's just not like real football, right? It doesn't exactly simulate the pressure. You have all day in the pocket to throw, and that's not like real football. It just doesn't simulate real football very much. He did say that one of the reasons he's been doing it more is because he feels like the quarterback early on in OTAs and mini camps can really focus on their footwork and fundamentals to get that in a rhythm. They don't have to be focusing on the offensive line in front of them or where the pressure is coming from. It gives them an opportunity to work on the plays by being able to go through the progressions the right way, work on the footwork the right way, work on the fundamentals the right way, and marrying the footwork with the actual route progression as well. So those are all things that you kind of want to work on without having the live bullets flying, and just know that you can kind of go through that stuff. And then hopefully when you do it in that sort of setting, then you're able to go through it and get it down right, so that hopefully when the bullets are flying and when you do have pressure, that you're still going through it the right way and can attack it the right way. So I think that's more of why he's come around to it a little bit more. But he definitely doesn't like it in general because it doesn't represent real football and not what's actually going to happen in the game. Appreciated the Thunder discussion from today's show. I've been rolling with the team as my second team for 3 seasons. J-Dub is my favorite player, and I'm been very critical of Presti, similar to Goody. Before I was a fan, he let Durant leave for nothing last season when I had a $500 championship bet at plus 10,000. He did not add a big man and help Dallas get better. Packers are on a similar path. Youngest team for 2 seasons, not really expected to do much, and it's up to the team to show they are championship material and that a young team can win the Super Bowl. Hopefully, 3rd season is a charm. I do think there are some very fun and interesting sort of parallels between the two. I do think the players that the Packers added this year in Banks and Hobbs are kind of similar to Hartenstein and Caruso. The big thing is that the Packers don't have a MVP caliber, top type caliber player in the league like a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Jordan Love or somebody is going to have to really kind of step up to be that sort of player. And then, of course, the Thunder had one of the best defenses in all of basketball. The Packers trending in the right direction, but certainly did not have the best defense in football this past year. So things that they need to do to improve, but definitely some very fun parallels there as well. Ben, I hope Elton's situation gets resolved by training camp. I think throughout training camp, Jenkins at center would become a stable thing. I'm right there with you. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't think he's going to need all of camp, but I really don't want to see him miss much time. If it's a few practices at the beginning, no harm, no foul, he'll be able to make up for lost time pretty quick with that. But if it continues to go on for any significant period of time, I do think that absolutely could be detrimental to both Elton and Jordan, as well as just the offensive line as a whole. Fatal Massacre, go Pack Go. Thanks so much for being a member for a month. Is it true that Goot stated he doesn't believe in Super Bowl windows? Like, how can you ever have true urgency if you never fully commit to winning when the timing is right? Other teams are doing it. He did say that, Snoop Robbie Rob. It is on the Cheesehead TV interview. I highly recommend checking that out if you have not done so already. Aaron and Corey did a phenomenal job, A, just getting him on, but B, asking him really great questions. And he did say he is not a believer in Super Bowl windows during that discussion. Like I said, I vehemently disagree with that idea. I understand the philosophy. I understand that there's this sort of idea that making the team viable every single year and making them competitive and getting them in the playoffs, that eventually things will click at the right time and you get hot at the right time and players are able to, kind of just get that, natural organic championship run on their own without having to maybe aggressively push it in one direction where you're going to borrow from the future, which is going to maybe set you up from failure later. I just disagree with it. I think we've seen it in NBA and Major League Baseball. I can't speak to hockey as much, but certainly in the NFL as well. I would say the Eagles went pretty aggressive in opening a window last year. That's not a perfect formula. There are other teams that have opened up aggressive windows and it has failed spectacularly, blown up in their face, and has caused some real pain in the long run. The New Orleans Saints are a phenomenal example of that. But I do think if you're never willing to take the opportunity to really be aggressive in that scenario, you are losing opportunity. And yes, there's going to maybe come a little bit of pain in the long run, but I think you have the ability to course correct that as well if you do a good job of it. And I do think you can open up a multi-year window by making some of those moves at the right time for the right reasons. And I'm not necessarily saying that Green Bay is in that situation right now, that they have to be all in and super aggressive, but there will come a time, I think, with this core of the team intact, where you do have an opportunity to do something like that, where maybe you're a player or two away. And I just think what you run into is a situation where there are going to be 4 or 5 or 6 teams that are all in every single year. There might be 4 or 5, 6 different teams every year, but you're going to have a handful. And if you're never willing to do it and you're always having to go against 5 teams that are willing to do it every year, that makes your job exceedingly tough and things just really having to break your way in the right way for the right in the right season. And it can happen. I think 2010 is a phenomenal example of exactly what Brian Gutekunst is talking about, of like, hey, we just want to be in it every year and get hot at the right time. I understand it. I appreciate that. It certainly makes you competitive, but I think we've also felt the heartbreak. And I think when you look at a team that since 1998 has only been to the Super Bowl one time, which again, nobody's apologizing for that Super Bowl. Nobody's apologizing for that win. I will absolutely take that win. But we're getting closer and closer to 30-year period of time where you only had one Super Bowl appearance, not only just one Super Bowl win, one Super Bowl appearance. And I think you do have to look internally at some point and say, hey, this philosophy of like, we'll just get in the dance every year and then try to make a run. Even when it was 12 teams, maybe I could understand it a little bit more. You're adding 2 more teams into that dance every year. There are 14 teams. You are one of 14. Just to think that you're the team that's just going to get hot at the right time is, I think, a little bit foolhardy. Can it happen? Sure. But as we've seen, it's not that easy. And more often than not, it's leading to a lot of very just heart-crushing defeats at the end of the year. So again, I don't think his philosophy is stupid. I don't think that it's not without merit. I don't think it's without thought. I don't think it's, that it can't work or whatever. I think that you have to be a little bit smarter on the approach. And I, for the most part, just disagree with it. Doesn't mean that my way is perfect either. And again, if there were a perfect way to build a championship team every year, well, 32 teams would be following that formula. And there is not that perfect formula. So we'll see what Green Bay continues to do. I do think Goody is more aggressive than his predecessor when there is an open window and when there is an opportunity to keep players together and kind of go for it. I do think he's much more aggressive than Ted was in that scenario. But I still think there's a couple more things that he could potentially do to be more aggressive in those situations. Hasn't paid off for them so far. Goody does not have a Super Bowl on his record. So we'll see if that changes over time. But it is something that he did say. It is something that I do have some struggles with, to be fair. Don't forget to hit the like button. Appreciate that, John. Off-season show idea, strategic thinking of Goody in the front office, multiple swings at position in the same draft, signing multiple free agents one year, none the next to take advantage of comp picks, probably others. Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. We could certainly look at a few of those things. I think there's probably a little bit less of it, John, than it actually is just happenstance with some of that stuff. My guess is when like Green Bay took 3 running backs or 3 offensive linemen in the same draft or 3 wide receivers in the same draft. I think it has less to do with that, more than just to do with like those were the best players available at the time. And it just happens that way sometimes. I don't think Goody went into this draft expecting to get 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds. You could tell he was just as surprised as it by anyone else when he went into that press conference, but those were the best 2 players that were available in the first and third rounds respectively. So I think sometimes it sounds cool, and there probably is some intentionality to it at times, but I think a lot of times it ends up just being a little bit more happenstance than anything else. If he knew maybe Rashawn Gary was going to be available, would he have maybe taken Za'Darius and Preston in free agency? Maybe he doesn't take one of them. Maybe he just takes Za'Darius and then drafts Rashawn Gary. But you don't know that when you're signing the free agents, right? So I think they're interesting things to kind of talk about and discuss, but sometimes you don't know if it's with intention or if it's just happenstance. And I do think sometimes those things are just a little bit more happenstance. If all the Packers beat writers, podcasters, analysts, etc., competed in a combine, who would have the highest RAS? Who would score highest in certain individual drills? Rooting for you, Andy. That's a pretty simple one. I'm going to go with John Kuhn in that one. Even though he's been retired for a little bit, I will take him in any sort of combine. I'll take him in any sort of battle royal as well. I don't know that anyone else is going to compete with John Kuhn in that situation. So still doing some work for Packers.com and the Packers radio network last I heard. So considering that he is a part of that, I'm going to have to go with John Kuhn. What's your take on the Shedeur Sanders saga? Why the Gabriel pick? Did Haslam make the pick? Is the 2 drafted quarterbacks a good thing or a mistake? I don't know the full backstory here and exactly what went into that decision with them taking Shedeur when they did. I'll go down this in a couple different pathways. First thing to know is that, going into this offseason, the Browns did not have a quarterback, right? Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, these are probably stopgaps at best, and adding a couple young quarterbacks to the fold and just seeing what you might have and just taking a couple swings at it, bites of the apple, whatever you want to call it, is never necessarily a bad thing. I would never care at any point, by the way, if you felt like a quarterback was the best in the 3rd round at that point, take him. If you felt like another one was best in the 5th round, I think that's where, Sanders was taken, take him as well. I don't think you're causing any real chaos by doing that. And I think the Browns now find themselves in a situation where they have 4 potential options in Shedeur and in Gabriel, as well as Flacco and in Kenny Pickett. And you let them go out and battle and see what happens. I think, my guess is they took Gabriel, the front office, with the idea that that was the best quarterback that they had on the board, knowing that they were going to have to take a rookie at some point, had him graded ahead of Shedeur Sanders. So they took him at that spot. A piece of me wonders if they thought by taking Gabriel there as well, that maybe the powers that be, maybe it was the owner, Haslam, would not want to take Sanders then, that they already got their quarterback. So why would we take another one? And maybe at some point in the 5th round, Haslam was just like, screw it, we're taking Shedeur, and made that call on his own. I don't know. I don't know what all went into that. I will say that at that point in the draft, any team taking Shedeur in the 5th round was pretty good value. And regardless of where your quarterback situation was, regardless of what you thought of Shedeur Sanders, I think just taking him, you can cut that player, right? If you cut a 5th rounder, if you get him into training camp and he's just terrible, or the attitude is so poor, or he's just so toxic, or Deion's too involved that you're just done with it, you can cut a 5th rounder. It's no harm, no foul. It's a little bit of a bummer that you wasted a 5th rounder on a player that you had to cut out of camp, but it's not like the most egregious thing in the world. Meanwhile, he probably was the most talented player that was on the board at that point in time, and taking a flyer on it to see if it could potentially work is probably well worth the swing there. So regardless if it was the Browns or any other team, taking him there just to find out, because here's the truth. NFL teams are not great at evaluating quarterbacks. We see them get it wrong all the time. Quarterbacks like Brock Purdy are the last player taken in the draft. Players that end up being absolutely god awful get taken in the 1st round, and everything in between. So we see quarterback evaluations all over the place, and teams just miss on this stuff. So if, people that like Shedeur Sanders maybe got it right, and maybe he can actually come in and be a good quarterback for them, trying it out in the 5th round, whether it was the owner's decision or not, is not the worst case scenario there. So I think probably the last team that maybe should have done it, and or maybe one of the last places that you maybe want Shedeur to go in that situation after so many failed quarterbacks in Cleveland is Cleveland. Maybe that's not the ideal one, but I don't, regardless of what the decision was, I don't hate it at that point in the draft. And I think the upside is certainly good enough where you take a flyer on it, and if it doesn't work out, it's just really not that huge of a deal. That's how I would view it in that situation. But I don't know exactly what the front office and ownership dynamic was there, and who ultimately made the call to select Shedeur. It's almost as if Cleveland, who has been desperate before, is taking a whole new level to try and figure out the quarterback position. This offseason, what Cleveland did, I don't necessarily hate. They're in no man's land with the entire Deshaun Watson situation. Their first step was admitting the Deshaun Watson failure and saying, we screwed this up. It's on us. We're going to get this right moving forward. And then understanding that you didn't really have the ability to go out and sign any major free agent quarterback. It just wasn't in the cards with where their salary cap situation was. And then add on top of it that, I don't think they were necessarily, they were in a unique situation from a quarterback. Like Cam Ward would have been the one that you wanted to go after. And they just happened to have the second pick, I think, instead of the first. And Cam Ward was going first overall. And so they didn't exactly have that opportunity to go and get that premium quarterback after Cam Ward went number 1 overall, and they were stuck at number 2. So once you get to that situation, just take some flyers on stuff. Grab a veteran in Joe Flacco. Grab a former, kind of top pick that hasn't worked out. That is usually very a smart thing to do, right? Whether it's been Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold or Geno Smith, or we can go on and on. Taking former top quarterbacks, bringing them to a new program and getting them settled in has been extremely great value for teams as of late. So try one of those, try that on for size, and then draft somebody in the 3rd round, draft somebody in the 5th round, and just have a year where you're just throwing darts at a dartboard at this thing and seeing if something can work. And if it works, great. If not, you're probably going to be picking early next year. Seems to be a little bit more of a deeper quarterback class at the moment. Things can change in a moment's notice with that, but at the moment, it seems that way. There could be some other quarterbacks when their salary cap situation is a little bit better that they could trade for or maybe sign. I think more opportunities will be at their disposal. So just kind of going the cheap route and going with 4 different options, veteran, again, former top pick that didn't work out in a situation, and 2 draft picks. I'm totally cool with that, with where Cleveland was at going into this year. And sometimes, by the way, the philosophy of just like, let's throw a bunch of crap at the wall and see what sticks is not always the worst situation when you're in a situation like Cleveland was. So I don't actually mind this time around. In general, it's probably not clearly not the situation you want to be in, but where Cleveland was at, I don't hate this line of thought from them for one off season until they probably go a little bit more aggressive at quarterback in 2026. Forgot to mention the championship windows, Andy. Another similarity with Presti and Goody. Presti added $27 million in dead money before last season for 3 second-round picks when the team already had 15 to 20. I love how Presti operates. I really, really do. He's a very unique mind, and I think there's a lot to take away from exactly how he built that team. OKC was projected to be a playoff contender, and he was still operating like he's rebuilding. At least Goody has not operated in that mode and is always trying to compete each season. I think one of the things that with Presti that you're looking at, and with sometimes what can be a good way to go about GMing, is you look at every interaction or every transaction, right, as a win or a loss. And you look at it as not, is it a win or loss right now? Or, is it necessarily just a win or a loss in the future? But is this a good deal for the franchise, period? And sometimes you might look at a deal in the here and now and say, like, I don't really understand that deal. But you look at it, you zoom out, you look at it and say, as a franchise as a whole, like the Thunder won that trade, or the team won that trade. They got good value on that trade. Maybe it doesn't make sense to take on the dead cap hit and only get 3 second rounders. But if you zoom out and say who actually won that deal, you would probably say the Thunder. And if you accumulate enough of those deals over and over and over and over and over, and you keep doing it over time, right now in the here and the now, it may not be the right move. But you continue to do that, and every single deal you become the winner of, and you get down the road, and all of a sudden you see where the Thunder are at right now. They have the championship defending team. They have the youngest team in basketball, no pending free agents. They have a lottery pick coming back that's ready to play next year, who is going to be, I think, a very good player. And you've got players that are still progressing, getting better. Chet's probably playing some of the worst basketball that he's going to play. He's only going to get better. Jay Will is going to get better. J-Dub, whatever one's which. They're probably both going to get better. Shea's probably going to get better. Not to mention the fact that you have a billion first-round picks coming up. they are in heaven right now with what they have as a team. They can do almost anything that they want to do to keep that team together, to continue to build from scratch. And again, you do enough deals over and over and over and over that you are the winner of. And it's kind of like, that kid that takes gets a penny from somebody and takes a penny and trades it for something and then trades it for something and trades it for something and trades it for something and trades it for something over and over and just gets these small incremental increases in value every time. And all of a sudden he took this penny and turned it into like a Ferrari. And you're like, how the heck did he do that? But you see it over the course of time and how these little trades here and there can amount to something bigger. I think there's a value in what Sam Presti has done in that regard. So if you have the ability to be patient, which the Thunder have been and which the Packers usually are, and you take that approach to things over time, I think it's a little bit easier in the NBA than it is in the NFL with that type of approach. But all of a sudden, before you know it, you can end up with an embarrassment of riches and a stockpile that every other team is very envious of. And that's certainly where the Thunder are at right now. Usually to win a Super Bowl, a team is elite at something. Eagles, O-line, D-line, Chiefs, passing attack, Pats, D, etc. If Green Bay is going to be elite at something this year, what will it be and how likely is it that it happens? I think that's a really interesting question, Alex. I think to me, this is maybe this is a bad answer in regards to what you're looking for, but I think they have the ability to be one of the most unique, balanced offenses in the NFL, an elite balanced offense, where if things go correctly, I think they're going to be able to throw at any given moment, and I think they're going to be able to run at any given moment. And it might not be that Jordan Love in the passing attack is throwing for 5,000 yards. It might not be that Josh Jacobs in the rushing attack is going for, 180 any game or, for 2,000 yards in the season or anything like that, meaning Jacobs individually. But anytime that they want to run the ball, they can run the ball. Anytime that they want to pass the ball, they can pass the ball, play actions at their disposal. And they're just extremely balanced in keeping teams really on tilt at all times of like, are they going to pass? Are they going to run? I don't know what they're going to do here. And they can be successful with all of it. I think they have an offensive line that is capable of both running and passing. I think they've got the quarterback, the weapons, the tight ends, the running backs. I think they have everything to be great at pretty much everything. Now, that has to all come together. That has to all gel together. But if they put an offense on the field that I think they are capable of putting out on the field, clearly the receivers need to take a little bit of a step if they want to become that. But if that becomes the case where we see them run with the efficiency and effectiveness that they did this past season, but also the passing offense and Jordan Love and these receivers get more on the same page and more in rhythm and the timing of the offense looks so much better, I think you can see an offense that really takes off in a similar way to what we saw this offense do in 2020 with Rodgers and Devontae. Now, Rodgers was playing at an MVP level. Devontae was the best receiver in football. I'm not saying that it's going to be exactly like that, but I think with the spread out approach and with weapons everywhere and the ability to run the ball with Josh Jacobs, I do think that the offense can be extremely potent. And so I don't know that it's, again, any specific one thing, but I think it's the ability on offense to do everything and at anything at any time is what would potentially set this team apart. And then if that does come to fruition, if this is one of, if not the top offenses in football that is being able to put up, 29, 30 points per game or something like that, then that certainly makes the defense's job much easier, allows the defense to get after the quarterback more. Jeff Hafley's in heaven because he can, pull out all of the stops and what he wants to do on defense. And it just becomes a very, very difficult team to play against. Now, that all sounds great. It's definitely easier said than done. And it looks great on paper, but the execution has to get there. The urgency of these young players to step up and get to that next level that Brian Gutekunst has talked about is very, very important. But I think Goody sees something similar in the fact that if these players step up together at the right time, it can be a very potent team, one that you do not want to see on offense. And I think Jordan Love can sling it. I think Josh Jacobs can run it. Again, I think the offensive line can do everything you ask them to. You've got receivers that can block on the outside, receivers that have a variety of different skill sets. Same thing at tight end. I think you have every ingredient that you need to be an extremely potent offense. And if that happens, I think everything after that can come together at a very high level. I think you have the punter who can switch the field, the kicker who can make the deep field goals. I think you have a special teams that can add something with the kick returners and punt returners that they have. I think the coverage is hopefully going to be better this year. And I think that can be something that, again, is taking a step in the right direction. I think you look at everything they have, and they have a lot of answers to any question that you want to ask. Now it's just, can they stay healthy? Can they put it all together? Can they take that step as going from a young team to a really, truly competing team? I think they can, but they're going to certainly have to answer some of those questions in a very positive way. John, can't thank you enough for all that you do. Having Pack a Day to look forward to every day helps me so much. It really shines in the off season. The fact that you record episodes on vacay is amazing. Yeah, we got a lot coming up. A lot of fun guests. So already recorded the episodes with Nagler and with Mike Wall. Those are already up. Obviously, you guys are all members, so you can check those out right now. Recording tonight with Justice for tomorrow's episode. And then on Wednesday, I'm recording with Paul Brettel, Camille Davis, and Paul Farrington. Thursday with Dusty Evely. And then I'm hoping to record another one in advance with Justice Mosqueda as well. Really looking forward to all of those episodes. And then we'll hopefully have one more episode that I do probably without a guest that I'm going to record in advance. And then, of course, get our weekly episodes done this week. So a lot that's going to come at you in the course of the next 4 to 5 days here. And again, as members, you'll have access to all of it early. I have had people say in the past that they have to try to temper it a little bit because otherwise they end up on that week of vacation with nothing left to view. So you might, if you're in that situation, maybe don't watch too many of them too fast because otherwise you're going to run out of material during that week. But just remember the audio podcast as well. Check that out because they will continuously be putting out new episodes right on time on the audio podcast. I'll be uploading those while I'm overseas. So you'll still have a new episode over on the audio channel every single day, even if you've already exhausted my episodes that I put out in advance. But you are more than welcome, John, and thank you for the kind words. By the way, Ursay's daughter has done that the last couple of years. I did that. I thought so as well, Ben. I thought I remember hearing something like that, but I wasn't. I knew somebody was doing it with some team. It makes sense that it's Ursay's daughter as well. Alex, thank you for the kind words. I like that you like my content, so thank you so incredibly much. Every time I hear someone talk about Aaron Banks, it's never anything that gets me excited at all. The only thing is Jenkins' upgrade over Myers is extreme upgrade, but what about him individually? Corey, I have finished up through week 10 of going through and grading every snap of his. I have 4 games left that I need to grade. That's going to be coming up. I'm going to finish that up today. There's a chance I might record it today, actually, and get that up in advance. At worst case scenario, that will be up for Wednesday's episode this week. Wait for that one. And just slight spoiler, I think you're going to be extremely happy with what I have to say in that episode. So I'll just do that slight teaser, but stick around for that. That's coming out in the next couple of days. Love the episode with Mike. How big of a deal is it that Jordan Love, if Elton sits out for 2 weeks of training camp or something? That in and of itself is probably not a huge deal. If you told me right now that Elton would be at camp practicing 2 weeks in, I would say no harm, no foul. We're good. We're Gucci. No issues. Totally fine altogether. Anything longer than that, I think it definitely becomes a distraction, an issue, the timing, the rhythm, things like that. Even though maybe Elton and Jordan haven't made those calls together, Elton's been on the offensive line working next to Josh and knowing all the things that Jordan likes and all those tendencies and everything like that. I'm not concerned about the snap or the cadence or anything like that. Elton's going to be just fine. He's a vet's vet. He knows how to play center. And I think he'll be able to pick that up pretty quick. So 2 weeks in, I'm good. I'm not too concerned about it. More than that would be a little bit more annoying and a little bit more frustrating. And, I think they can survive even if it goes into the season for a couple weeks. I don't think it's going to get to that point very clearly, but even if it did, they have the offensive line depth to get through it. But you want him out there against Detroit, and those first couple games are going to be very, very important. So again, hopefully this is not something that lingers and can get concluded and just done with sooner rather than later. Golden, Watson, Reed, Lloyd, Hardman. I remember when Kansas City filled it out, what was essentially a track team and how much of a threat that caused. At some point this season, we'll have our own. Yeah, we talked about that in the unique formations, is putting out there a track unit of Marshawn Lloyd, Luke Musgrave, Matthew Golden, Christian Watson, either Jaden Reed, McCole Hardman, whoever you want to put out there. There are some very intriguing options with a lot of speed. I think the great news is there's no real bad options at the moment, right? Josh Jacobs might not be a burner, but he's certainly not slow. Tucker Kraft might not be a burner, but he's certainly not slow. And both of their run after the catch ability makes up for maybe a little bit of the lack in speed. And then Musgrave and Lloyd are certainly both fast. You have a bunch of fast wide receivers. So you're in a very good spot with the weapons that you have on this offense. We're more likely to have a top 3 offense or defense. I'm going to go offense, Jobin. I don't think either would be super shocking to me. My guess is both end up in the top 10 in some capacity. My guess is I'm going to say 6th, 7th offense and 9th, 10th defense. That's kind of my prediction. And by the way, if special teams can get in like that, I know this is a lot, but in that top 15, 14 category, that's a Super Bowl contending team. If you have a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense, and a good special teams, you're competing. Like, not many teams have both, right? So I think they would be definitely in the conversation at that point. Obviously, if one of them gets into a top 3 category, then we're bringing it to another level, and we'll have, I think, a real puncher's chance at winning a Super Bowl. What happened to Z-Biotics? You should be the poster child for them. A 365-day-a-year YouTube podcast, missing a day of work because you didn't take it. That's an amazing ad for it. It actually very much is. No, I think going to still be doing more with Z-Biotics coming up. So looking forward to that. That'll be primarily on the audio side of the channel as well. Maybe a little bit on the video also, but I do expect that to hopefully continue. That is through the Blue Wire side. So that is not a relationship that I have on my own. Companies like Luigi's Frozen Pizza, as well as Habish Roti, are ones that I have worked on my own. That one is through Blue Wire, and then they had some opportunity to do some YouTube stuff as well. So partnered with them a little bit. But yes, that is a very good commercial for them, and I very much appreciate their support, and hopefully we get some of that continued into this upcoming season. Yep, I knew what you meant, R.R. Smith. Gloss of Rojo on me. Is that a... Oh, Spanish wine. All right. I'm not a wine drinker. I will say that, John. But I will have a glass of something on you. I appreciate that. And that is very, very kind of you. Yeah. I do enjoy doing wine tastings. Definitely prefer whites over reds, and definitely, like, I love sweet wines. Like, I could do those forever. And I love like a port, even if it's got, or like a tawny or something like that, as like a dessert wine that I really love. But I can't stand red wine, but I do really enjoy like wine tasting. I love champagne. Those are all great. So I can always go to wine tastings and I can always appreciate them, but definitely more of a beer and or mixed drink guy, to say the least. What do you see as Lloyd's workload this year? I'm really excited about him, but wondering how Matt LaFleur is going to use him. I think a couple things are going to determine that, Chad. I think first and foremost, can he stay healthy? Second is his playing time is probably going to be very predicated on if he can hold on to the ball and if he can pass protect. Those are the two big things from college that hopefully do not carry over, meaning that he needs to do a much better job of taking care of the football and needs to do a much better job in pass protection. If he can do those two things, I think you can see the field quite a bit. I think what you're probably looking at is about, 8 to 12 snaps per game that probably equate to like 6 to 10 touches per game. I think you do want to probably try to get the ball in his hands. Maybe like 6 to 8 touches per game, somewhere in that range, I think is probably about the right change of pace. I think he has the ability to be a really fun change of pace to Josh Jacobs. But again, he's going to have to earn his way into that discussion. And if players like Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson just go out and show that they can hold on to the football better and pass protect better, then those guys are going to get a little bit more opportunity. But I do think based on his dynamic playmaking ability, you are going to see a helping, again, 10 to 12 snaps of Marshawn Lloyd every game. Not necessarily somebody you want to put in your fantasy lineup, but I do think he can be a really fun, just difference to what Josh Jacobs brings to the table, down in and down out. And I do think he's got some really fun playmaking ability. So I'm excited, but there's going to definitely be some things that he has to prove to get on the field with any level of consistency this upcoming season. This team won 11 games last year, but I believe McKinney, Jacobs, Tom, and Kraft were the only players who approached their top performances last year. Where do you see big growth coming elsewhere? First of all, I think Edgerrin Cooper has the ability to be an absolute star at linebacker. So that's one of them. I think Evan Williams can play even much better than what he did a season ago. I thought he started great, then had some injuries, and then faded a little bit towards the end. I think you can take that fade out of it, and I think he can be a really good safety. I think moving, even if Carrington Valentine stays the same, even if Keyshawn Nixon just plays at the level that he was at when he was at outside corner, which was pretty darn good, by the way. Slot was always iffy. Outside corner, I thought looked really solid last year, like really solid. And then if Nate Hobbs is what I think he is, based on what we saw from his tape this past year, it's a huge upgrade over Eric Stokes from a year ago. I think that's an improvement. I think we started to see Quay take a little bit of a jump towards the end of last year. Hopefully that can continue. I think the pass rush with a new defensive line coach, there's at least hope there. Plus, knowing that Kenny and LVN were pretty banged up this past year, I still think if you're looking for this defense to take a step, the defensive line is going to have to be where it is. I think you probably have a little bit of a step back in run defense, if I'm being honest. I think they worked insanely hard to get that run defense where it was at a year ago. And I think even if you take the foot off of gas just a little bit in that regard, it's going to show. Plus losing TJ Slayton, I think, is going to have an effect as well. So I do expect them to take a little bit of a step back there, but hopefully not too much. I expect Jordan to be I know that Jordan didn't have like this terribly bad year this past year. I expect him to be a really good step better than he was this past year. Like I think you're really going to see a pretty fantastic Jordan Love in 2025. I think the receivers are going to be much more in rhythm with Jordan because Jordan's going to be able to practice a little bit more. And I think the offensive line is going to be better. So I think there's a lot of things that you can point to. Is it all going to work out that way? Of course not. There's going to be adversity that they have to overcome. There's going to be a lot of things that just don't go exactly according to plan. But I do think there's a lot of ways that this team can improve in incremental ways in a lot of places. And I think that's going to allow them to take, I think, a pretty big step overall. Chicago and Cleveland have pretended to be in championship window for quite a while with no real results or foundation for it to work. Tennessee Titans were that way last year as well. So but that's the thing. It's not just being willing to go all in when you have that championship window. It's also a skill in identifying when that time is. You do it too early and you're going to put yourself in a really tough position because you tried to open up that window too aggressively when you had Mitch Trubisky or when you had Will Levis or when you just didn't have the quarterback to make it work. And you can be in a really tough situation when that quarterback doesn't work out and you paid all that money to all those players and now you're just in no man's land and it ends up being a nightmare and your front office and your coaching staff are probably all going to end up fired. You do it too late and that window is closed and you're still trying to force it. You can make an argument that Green Bay probably did that a little bit in 2022, where they tried to keep it around 1 year too long and it backfired pretty spectacularly. They had a really bad season. And if you do that, that can be an issue as well. You have to not only be willing to do it, but you have to do it at the right time. I'm totally fine with you continuing to kind of keep that open window until you identify that the time is right. And then when the time is right, boom, go for it and be aggressive. But if you don't do that in the right way, it can really hurt you. And that's where you see some of these teams fail spectacularly at it. If the Rashid contract story is true, do you believe it is a reflective of the notion that Goody is willing to trade Jenkins or Tom in pursuit of a very valuable player? Not necessarily. No, I don't think so, Donald. I think it would just be taking a look at the Rashid Walker contract on its surface and just making the determination, is this a good deal for Green Bay or not? And if they get into a situation where they feel they get very good value, again, if it's like a 3-year 36 on Rashid and you see what the rest of the market's going for, and you're just like, this is an unbelievable value and one that we probably could flip at any point in time. If all of a sudden Belton and Jordan Morgan become great, next year we can probably trade Rashid Walker for like a 4th, 5th round pick and move on, and we're in a great spot. So I just think you take it one decision at a time and then kind of figure out the rest later. So I don't think a Rashid Walker conversation to me would be a sign that they're going to trade Elton Jenkins or Zach Tom or anything like that. I just think it gives them more optionality moving forward, and you figure out the rest of the offensive line as the time comes. And if you end up with one too many offensive linemen, freaking awesome. That's never the worst situation to be in. So I just think you take that on its own accord with what you can get for, or what you have to give for Rashid Walker. And if the price is right, you do it. And if not, you wait, and he probably ends up somewhere else in free agency. Coon. Other than the win-loss turnout, what storyline are you most curious to see play out this season? Jordan. Jordan's the easy and obvious one. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think this season will absolutely define who Jordan Love is as a quarterback. Not saying again that there couldn't be a season that's slightly better or slightly worse. You know, you have just the things go right in one way or things go a little bit wrong in another season. It can fluctuate a little bit, but I think this is the baseline for Jordan here on out. I think if he just goes out and shows that he is clearly a, MVP candidate, top 5 quarterback, I think that's going to be what you have. I think that's Jordan moving forward. I think if he shows like, hey, the highs are high, but the interceptions and the gunslinger stuff still comes out from time to time, and you're just not exactly sure which Jordan you're going to get week in or week out, that's a possible conclusion, but that's probably just who he is at that point. And you have to kind of navigate around that then moving forward. And if he has a poor season, then you look back at last year and say like, and I don't think poor, but like, it's just kind of an average season, right? He's probably like the 16th quarterback in the league, and maybe 17th, maybe 18th, maybe 15th, somewhere in that range. Just probably, again, who he is as a quarterback. And again, then you probably have to put the exact right surrounding cast around him if you want to make that run, and just hope that he gets hot in the playoffs at the right time and goes on one of those runs like he did in 2013 at the end. So I think this is very much going to define Jordan in a very real way. It's year 3 as a starter, year 6 in the league. And what we see this year is probably just the Jordan that we get for the most part for the foreseeable future. If you could fuse two Packer players together, who would they be? You can choose whatever assets from each. I mean, I'm going to choose Charles Woodson as my baseline, just in general, because I think that would be. Maybe hold on. I mean, like Aaron Rodgers with like Amon Green's running ability would be really fun, right? Like if you just like put, all of a sudden like Rodgers could take off and run like Amon Green, both with power and speed at any moment. That's certainly a fun one. Yeah, that's certainly intriguing. I don't know how much it like helps you because you kind of want Aaron just playing from the pocket. You don't want him taking a bunch of hits, but you're adding Amon Green's physicality on top of that as well. That would definitely be a fun one to kind of think about. But I'll do like I don't know, like who are just like two supreme athletes. Something like that would work too. Like a Sterling Sharp and a Charles Woodson like merged into one like super, and like you probably just get like a unbelievable Travis Hunter in that situation. Like that would be really fun too. So something like that could be awesome. Like a Christian Watson and a Charles Woodson. Yeah, something like that I think would be awesome. Those would be the ones that come to mind. But Aaron Rodgers with Amon Green's running ability is very fun to think about at the moment. Devontae Adams with Watson's speed, that could be very fun as well. What's the floor player and the ceiling player for Edgerrin Cooper? He, although aren't exact type of players, but the Coops bulk in 56 reminds me a lot of Julius Peppers. Just need that dark visor. Yeah, I don't think he's definitely like a pass rusher like that. I think the floor for Edgerrin Cooper is 2024 Edgerrin Cooper. I think hopefully that's the worst we ever see Edgerrin. And I think that he's already set a really high floor for him moving forward. I think the ceiling is the best linebacker in football. First team all pro. I don't know. I don't know or really care who the player comp is. I think the ceiling is he becomes the 1A, just the guy. When you come talking about NFL linebackers, you just think immediately of Edgerrin Cooper. That to me is the floor is last year. The ceiling is the best linebacker in football. That to me is where it is for Edgerrin. Just got done with close to 3 hours of yard work in Virginia heat, ready to kick back, drink a 7-Up, and listen to this. I'm sorry that you had to do the yard work. I'm glad that you're enjoying the 7-Up and hopefully enjoying some Packers conversation. Do you think the 30 unsigned second-round picks signed before training camp, we see a lot of holdouts? I'm hopeful that we get most of those done. I would think the later ones start getting done sooner because those aren't all going to be guaranteed, but you might see one get done and then it just like go right in order as well, which hopefully isn't the case because Belton's a little bit later in that stretch. But I'll be interested to see how this plays out. I'm going to be talking to Justice Mosqueda later today, and I know he did a big article on this. So I'll talk to him about it, see what he thinks. But we'll definitely have that tomorrow for tomorrow's episode with Justice and what he thinks of the entire situation. Thanks for that explanation, Andy. Never thought of it that way before. Hopefully this is the Packers or Chargers year so I can celebrate again. Well, hopefully Packers. No offense to your Chargers, but I would much rather have it be the Packers, Mike McGee. All right, Daryl, not really a Browns fan, but I find it funny how it seems Shedeur is a complete screw up on arrogant, but his other son, Silo and Travis, are hardworking. Like, how did Dion raise his kids differently? I don't know if you mean like Travis Hunter. I don't know if there's a Travis Sanders, but Travis Hunter is obviously not related. Just was obviously on the team, at least unless I'm missing something there. I haven't studied Shiloh all that closely. Obviously with Shedeur, I think, when you're the quarterback and you're a Sanders and you're, face of a college team and things like that, those things certainly have an effect, right? But hopefully, Shedeur just kind of gets it together and is able to kind of learn from some of the mistakes he's had already and go on to a very fruitful NFL career. And hopefully, kind of grow as a person in the meantime as well. Certainly rooting him on. Good quarterbacks are good for the game. And if he can become a really good quarterback, he certainly would be a great story. And we all know, Cleveland could finally use a good quarterback. So we'll see if it happens or not. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to say the least. Long-term, I'm intrigued by Savion Williams' versatility to create mismatches from various wide receivers and even sporadic running back wildcat. But how much is it realistic as a rookie? Should he just concentrate on wide receivers? Yeah, I don't know that we need to pigeonhole him into anything yet. And I'm sure Green Bay will be somewhat careful in how they kind of progress him moving forward. But I think you just kind of have him learn wide receiver and, take everything one step at a time. And if you start realizing you can do some creative things with him, awesome. But I guarantee you they'll spend a good amount of time making sure that he can get the nuances of wide receiver down. And he's going to learn that stuff at a pro level now after doing it in college. And hopefully that allows him to take a step in the right direction from his technical skills as a wide receiver. But they'll definitely focus on that quite a bit. And again, I don't think that there's a ton that's going to have to go into if you want to use him as a kick returner, wildcat, running back, anything like that. And I don't think there's going to be a ton of packages like that. I think it would be a handful of plays here and there throughout the course of the season. So I expect him to primarily focus on wide receiver for the time being. Andy, with all the trades that happened between sports, what are your top trades that ever happened to change a franchise? Oh man, I mean, I think these are always interesting things to study, just to say like how did it affect the franchises moving forward. You look at the Ricky Williams one, you look at the Herschel Walker one. Those are ones that certainly come to mind. I'm very interested to see how the Luka Doncic trade changes the trajectory for both the Mavs and the Lakers moving forward. You know, I think the Kawhi Leonard one was a very intriguing one that certainly helped the Raptors win a championship. I wonder how that affected the Bucks, and if the Bucks might have one more championship if Kawhi doesn't go to them in that situation. Clearly, the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander one, the Paul George trade that got Shai to OKC in the first place, and then what they've been able to do since that standpoint is one that's going to go down. There's so many of them that we could look at some of these for forever, but those are ones off the top of my head that I think are always interesting just to study and see sort of the repercussions and the ripple effects that they've had on the rest of the league from there on out. I click on the Nagler video so fast, the title was still Nagler vid. Yeah, that was one where I was just uploading all this stuff all at once. And then I realized that as I hit save on everything, that I didn't actually update the details on the video portion. So thankfully, it was only open to members at that point, and I was able to correct it within like 5 seconds. So I think you were probably one of the only ones to still see it at that point, Chicken. Andy made 2 in a row. Have you ever heard about what Jordan did in the offseason or anything he focused on for the upcoming year? I have not yet. Hopefully that's something we get the opportunity to kind of talk to him about in training camp. I don't know. Maybe the guys had the opportunity to ask him in his press conference thing that he did with the media, but I did not have the opportunity. I wasn't there on that day. So yeah, I didn't get to ask him, but maybe something we can ask in training camp. The player that will make the biggest second-year jump outside of Cooper, for me, he's a shoo-in, is Evan Williams. I like his mind for the game. Really good feeling about that prediction. Yeah, I think Evan Williams is fantastic and really looking forward to him in year 2. I read stories about Edgerrin Cooper getting bigger and that Colby Wooden is being used at nose tackle. Did anyone else have a noticeable offseason transformation? I was hoping Jacob Monk would get stronger. Yeah, tough to tell on Monk. I thought Jordan Morgan looked a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical. But again, it's tough to say that stuff for sure. I thought there was somebody else who looked bigger and stronger as well. I thought Wicks looked a little bit bigger. But yeah, it's sometimes tough to tell without pads on. Some guys look bigger, sometimes guys look smaller, etc. But it was definitely Edgerrin Cooper and Colby Wooden were the 2 that immediately came to mind. Thoughts on the MLB, NFL, NBA commissioners? Personally, think they've all done much more bad than good. It's a good question, Chicken. I don't know that I have a strong feeling on it. I think sometimes they probably get a little bit more hate than they deserve. I hated some of the stuff in Major League Baseball with banning the shift and things like that. I'm always pro strategy. So anytime you take strategy out of it, I hate it. I think the pitch clock timer was a godsend. I think it has been a massive win. And I mean a massive win for Major League Baseball with the pitch timer. And I thought some of the stuff with like bigger bases and stuff like they were doing with that was going to be a nightmare. And it really hasn't been at all. So I'm so far actually pretty impressed with some of the changes that Major League Baseball has made. I think they've been a little bit more for the positive, but I do hate the no shifting and things like that. I think teams should be able to play players where they want to play players. And I don't like that one. Everything else has been a pretty big positive for me from a baseball standpoint. NFL, I think sometimes they're poor stewards of the game in general, but I know that their goal is to make money, not necessarily make the product better. I think Goodell has mostly been fine. I think he gets a little bit more vilified than probably need be. I don't think there's anything great he's done. I don't think there's anything that's changed the game irrevocably. So it's been fine. And I think Adam Silver, kind of same thing. I like the fact that they're trying different stuff for the All-Star game, the NBA Cup. They're trying things. I think they just have to figure out a way to make the NBA season smaller because these players are just falling apart. It's way too physical of a game. And I think it's just at a point where you've got to find a way to shrink down the season in some real way. Because again, these players are just falling apart right now. I'm a defense guy, by the way. The ideas you had the other day about an amoeba defense incorporating Isaiah Simmons and our rookie Colin are very intriguing. Yeah, I love that sort of stuff. Again, probably a little bit pie in the sky, but fun to think about nonetheless. I think Evan Williams can end up as a Pro Bowl All-Pro safety next to X. If that happens, wouldn't that make Green Bay one of the best secondaries in the league? Certainly make them the best safety duo in the league if that happened. Secondaries, it would be in the conversation because if you have 2 players playing that well at safety, just by default, even if your corners are just good, you're still going to have one of the best secondaries. But it would certainly make for a really fun safety duo. And I don't know about all pro, but I think, in a year or two, I think Evan Williams absolutely could be in that Pro Bowl conversation for sure. Buffalo had that employer hide for a few years with one elite corner that was never on the field yet. That's definitely true. And that safety combo was really fun. So yeah, you get two good safeties, it can go a long way. That's for sure. I'm just very excited about that safety room in Green Bay. I'm much higher on Bullard than I think a lot of people are. Evan Williams is great. McKinney's amazing. I think Kitano Oladapo could start. I think Zane Anderson could start in a pinch as well. So I really, really do enjoy that safety room quite a bit. Mike, thanks so much for being a member for 3 months. Can't wait to see Golden burn Jair in person. Yeah, I obviously hope Jair has a great experience in Baltimore. Not rooting against him by any means, but in week 17, I will be. And if Matthew Golden cooks him, it would certainly be very fun, and I will definitely take that outcome. Green Bay absolutely did that in 22. Sorry, I already forgot what we talked about, Ben. My apologies. I heard you like real hip hop. Give this a listen. La Russell Hymn 500, good driving music. All right, Daryl, I'll give that a listen. And I definitely do love hip hop. Go Pack. Happy end of Monday, everyone. Appreciate you, Will. I agree with your take on Ben Williams. Ben, me as well. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Here. Don't think anything's going to change. I really don't see anything changing in any significant way. Probably the backdrop will be different. There's things that I'm already looking at in regards to that. And hopefully some of the quality stuff, sound and picture continues to get better and can maybe add some graphics and stuff here and there. I want to continue to get better with that stuff as time goes on. Not certainly forefront right now. I do want it to be maybe a little bit more of a dynamic background and things like that. But outside of stuff like that, I will be covering the Packers. I will be hopefully still doing it on YouTube or whatever the medium is at the time 5 years from now. Hopefully continuing to still do the podcast. Hopefully still are both very successful. If Bleacher Report continues to have me, maybe doing that. If the radio show continues to work well, maybe continuing to do that. But for the most part, I think you'll see it as time goes on. I do think you will see some changes, meaning I might go to 5 days a week rather than 7 days a week at some point in time. I'm not saying that's going to be in the next 5 years or 10 years. I don't know when that's going to be, but at some point that probably is the case. Doesn't mean that you won't get 365. It just means that I probably hire somebody to do Saturdays and Sundays, whether that's a Ross Uglum or a Dusty Evely or somebody like that can Justice Mosqueda that can take my spot on Saturdays and Sundays to just take a little bit off of my plate in some of those situations. That could definitely be something. And just, looking at more ways where I can prioritize my time a little bit different. At some point, I might stop doing the grading the pack stuff just because it takes an extraordinarily large amount of time. Just some different things like that I might change up things the way that I do them a little bit. Maybe focus on doing more live shows than some of the scripted stuff. There could be slight changes in that, but for the most part, see myself pretty much doing the exact same stuff that I'm doing now, and hopefully just kind of continue to get better at it. We've decided that Love's walk-up song should be Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News, correct? There's a lot of good ones with Love in it, that's for sure. At OTAs and minicamp, was Golden primarily with the ones or the twos? He was with the top group almost entirely. I don't think he ever went down with the twos, to be honest. Reggie White plus Julius Peppers, that would certainly be a heck of a player. No question about it. Andy Herman with Aaron Nagler's drinking ability. That would be something. Actually, what you don't know is I just don't do it a lot. But man, when I drink, I drink for sure and can handle it, usually pretty darn well, other than that one time that did not go well and I missed an episode because of it, but usually can handle it very well. I think if there was a hot seat, Goody would be on it more than LaFleur because Goody's first round pick issues. I think Matt will be on it before Goody because I think Goody has stayed pretty even keel throughout his entire time. And I think it's just easier to usually change the coach than it is the GM sometimes. So I think Matt would be on, even though I think maybe Matt is a little bit better at his job than maybe Goody is his at this point. Maybe. I bet Matt would get on the hot seat quicker than Goody would at this point. Out you go, Ben. I like it. I don't think Nagler's a lightweight. No, he can handle his drinks. That's for sure. Don't know their long-term futures as Packers, but I believe Reed Walker and Zach Tom deserve a place in the Packers salary cap Hall of Fame. Getting that offensive tackle play for just $2 million per year is crazy. Listen, what Goody did in that draft of getting Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, and Rasheed Walker all third round or later to get 3 starting offensive linemen is beyond absurd, and we don't talk about it enough. Touchy subject. Here we go. I haven't read this yet, but thoughts on if Henry Ruggs should be allowed back in the NFL? I'm just personally appalled that he could get out of prison only 3 years and make millions after killing that woman. I don't know how much I even want to touch this one, chicken. Other than I'll say, I'm a pretty big believer in second chances. Sometimes people don't deserve it. And I think people will, I don't even have a take on it in this, case, but people will certainly say that maybe a player or a person like Henry Ruggs deserves a second chance. Others will say he unequivocally does not. And I don't necessarily have a hard and fast feel on it one way or the other. I'd have to kind of go and look at the situation again and everything like that. But I am a believer societally in general in trying to give people second chances, especially if it's a one-time sort of thing. Yeah, I'll just put it that way. I think we are sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly quick to condemn. I have made some stupid choices in life where if I was at the wrong place at the wrong time when I made said stupid choice, who knows what could have happened, right? And I think when we're young, we have a tendency to make some really poor decisions. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. At age 20, 21, 22, you hand me 40 some $million. I probably would not have been a very good human being at that point in time and probably would have done some really stupid things as well. Now, whether I would have been driving 100 plus miles per hour and killed somebody, hopefully not. But I do think that people deserve second chances in general. Again, whether this is one of them, I don't know that I care to have that debate at the moment. I don't know that I'm educated enough on the topic to have that stance one way or the other. But in general, I do appreciate people getting second chances in life when possible. Paul George for SGA. Went unbelievably well for OKC. Let's put it that way. Top trade that was supposed to change a franchise that flopped Rodgers to the Jets. Name one bigger. You can't. I actually believe that there probably are bigger ones out there. I mean, there've been some ones in the NBA as of late. I mean, there's been some ones in the NBA as of late that have been some pretty big flops as well. But that's certainly up there, Ben. No question about it. With Hobbs replacing Stokes, I think our secondary will be way better than the mainstream media thinks. I think you are right on that, Celestial Prophet, and hopefully are correct. I do think the depth is a fair question mark, but I am very high on what they can become at the moment. Who do you predict the Packers pay or keep after next offseason, and who do they let go? We probably have to get a little bit lightning round because I do have to get out of here, Danny. I am going to be talking to Justice about this. At least that's the plan right now of kind of ranking these players. I think Zach Tom is the one that you put immediately at the top of the list. And then everything else I kind of want to see play out through the course of the season a little bit more. But it's just a very interesting discussion to say the least. And outside of Zach Tom, I don't know that I have a great feel on it at the moment, but I'm certainly very intrigued to see what Goody is going to do with a lot of these very interesting free agents. Jordan is getting married this summer, I believe. I think that's true. I do an awful job on following anything with the Packers' personal lives. And I get asked stuff of like, where does a certain Packer live? Or like, who are they engaged to? Or like, what? I have no idea. No idea, but I think that is true. Brett Favre's trade to the Packers for a win. That was obviously a franchise-altering one for sure. Since Ja and Hobbs miss about the same amount of time, Ja for 6 is a steal compared to Hobbs for 12 a year. If Goody is tired of missed time, why sign Hobbs for more? Hobbs has played more, I think, is the answer. I think Hobbs is younger as well, but I'm not 1,000,000% positive on that. Yeah, Nate Hobbs is 25 years old. Jair is 28. Hobbs has played more than Jair. And quite frankly, I would say Hobbs has at least been in the same category of a corner as Jair over the last 4 years period of time as well. So you're betting on the player that is younger, has played about the same caliber of football. I do think Jair is better as a pure cover player, just straight up. If you said right now, I could either have Jair or Hobbs out there covering whatever wide receiver for one play. Who do I want? I want Jair. But I think the overall body of work is actually relatively close. And again, the younger player and the one that's played more is actually Hobbs in this situation. So I think that's why he got more. And I think most teams would have paid Hobbs more than Jair at this offseason. Hobbs had a legitimate market. Green Bay did not bid against themselves, and Jair clearly did not. So I think Green Bay, at least on the surface, got this one right. We'll see how it plays out moving forward. Monk is a gym rat. He took a lot of reps with the ones. He did take reps with the ones, but obviously that's in large part due to Elton being out. And Ben beat me to it. Speaking of the Brewers, I am addicted to the 10-minute recap vids on YouTube. Makes baseball really fun to watch. If you have not seen them, check them out. I'll have to do that. Who's it? Who puts him out? Is it just the Brewers or is it Major League Baseball? I'd have to just let me know who puts him out. I'll check him out. Monk had a nice preseason in camp last year. I'm uncertain why he did not play more last year. He probably needs to get stronger. That would be my guess as well. Holmes. A hopeful O-line left to right, Morgan, Banks, Jenkins, Belton, and Tom. I still kind of want to see Walker and Morgan both get time at left tackle, and I kind of both want to see Sean Ryan and Anthony Belton get time both at right guard as well. So kind of want to see some platoons and some rotations there so you get the young guys experience. But I do think that right now Ryan is better than Belton, and I do think Walker is better than Morgan, but I think that's for the time being. And I think with Belton and Morgan getting more time, they could surpass both of those players, and you're going to need both of those players next year. Hopefully at least one championship banner behind you for the men in green and gold, not yellow. Yes, I would like to see a championship in the next 5 years as well. At least one. If Willis shines in training camp, what do you feel his trade value could be? I don't know that a training camp or preseason shining is going to be anything of real value. There's no team that's looking to trade for a starting quarterback right now. So I don't think that that does anything for Green Bay at the moment. If at the trade deadline, some team is desperate for a quarterback and is interested, maybe you can explore it at that point in time. But I think Malik Willis is going to have a lot of value to Green Bay as a backup. And I don't think any team's going to see him in preseason and be like, oh my God, we need Malik Willis right now. There's just really not those opportunities out there. So I fully expect Malik Willis to be on the team this year. Everyone talking about the disappointing season of Kenny. He didn't play well, but the guy I was more disappointed in was Gary. Just disappeared in some games last year. Needs a big bounce back season. I disagree with Gary having a poor season. I think he was good. I think he was my third or fourth highest graded player, but certainly still did not live up to the expectations of what we have seen in the past, or arguably the contract that's being given to him either. So I do think he needs to step up in a bigger way. Hopefully this is the year that he does that. He's a couple of years removed from that injury now. And I do think Green Bay is looking for a much bigger contribution from him. They're definitely going to need it. That's for sure. I don't want to trade him unless the team wants to give up a high pick, though they won't. Yeah, I think that's the same feeling I have, Ben. Don't steep to Peter's level, Andy. Which level is that, Ben? What was I steeping to? Gary led the team in pressures and sacks on a defense that was 8th in the league in sacks. Again, I think there's the difference there. I think Rashawn Gary was solid to even probably pretty good this past season. Again, I think you can also desire for him to do more because he's done more in the past. I think that's also fair. I know it takes more time to edit, but the second your jump video, I listen to these while I do things and I lose track a little of who you're talking about. Would you consider adding the name on the screen? It is something I will try to do over time a little bit more. I am just insanely pressed for time already. But, again, ultimately what this is an audio podcast that you get a video component of with my face on the screen is basically what it is. So what I can try to do is try to say it a little bit more often. But I do know that those things would be helpful. Something I'd like to strive for over time. Don't know how realistic it's going to be anytime soon because I am just in every moment already spoken for, if you will. And I kind of want to continue to put out the amount of content that I'm doing already. I don't want to scale it back in any way. So it's a tough thing to do, but hopefully over time we can get there. After wrecking my beloved truck before a friend's bachelor party, which I had a Guinness, hard lemonade, pumpkin beer, vanilla beer, tall glass of Jack Daniel's whiskey with a splash of water, finished it off with another Guinness and was completely fine until I woke up the next morning. We all make mistakes, Ben. We've all been it. Obviously, I definitely am against drinking and driving in any way. I'm sure you are as well. But we all were young and stupid at one point. Just have to be very, very careful with that stuff, obviously. And like I said, I appreciate giving second chances to people, but that stuff, unfortunately, the person who was in the accident, who died on the other side, does not get a second chance. So again, I get it's a very sensitive topic, no matter what your viewpoint is on it. And I really appreciate the sensitivity of the topic in and of itself. Those are not easy conversations to have. And I just try to avoid that drama in my life as much as I possibly can and try to make as many positive decisions as I can to avoid those incidents. So hopefully I can stay out of those situations in general, because they're never easy for a family to navigate, never easy situation to navigate. And again, I know it's a very, very tough thing when you end up in those situations, and obviously feel for the families that were involved on the opposite side of it, to say the least. So Deshaun Watson was the worst in sports history without a single doubt. Yeah, that's probably true. Later, guys. Go Packs. Stay safe. Appreciate you, Holmes. I want Love to succeed so bad. I have been defending him like he's my brother. I think Love is good quarterback with elite potential. He's just got to show it. It's going to be a big year for him. Can't wait to see it. True, but at the same time, none of us thought he would actually get Cleveland anywhere. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think there was certainly still hope that he could be at least a good quarterback in the league. And he was not only a terrible quarterback, but obviously a not great human. And it was just one of the worst trades that anyone's ever done. I don't think anything's going to top it. Brewers and MLB both put recap vids out several hours after games. I'll have to check that out. Valentine needs more time on the field, and on the field, it think he's a good substitute for Jair. Same goofy dog mentality on the field. I am excited about Valentine. I think he's a good player, and I hope he has a really great year 3. I think there's so much more meat on that bone, and I think he can become a really good corner in this league. Hopefully, this is the year that he shows that. What really needs to be asked is how Tennessee feels about trading away Malik Willis to the Packers for 7th. I mean, I think ultimately they don't really care if Cam Ward ends up being Cam Ward in who they think he can be. And I'm very high on Cam Ward. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback, but they would still love to have him as a backup. And they certainly traded their best quarterback last year in Malik Willis and kept Will Levis and Mason Rudolph instead. A big mistake, but one that they can certainly navigate if Cam Ward becomes very good. Oh, 5 days a week. Gotcha. I got you, Ben. I now see what you mean. Anyway, we see Dobbs getting a new contract next year. Give me hope. The way that Dobbs earns his contract next year is by becoming Jordan's true go-to target. If they develop that relationship that like Rodgers and Jordy had or Rodgers and Devontae had, they'll keep him. I really, truly believe that. I don't think you want to take away a quarterback's favorite target / security blanket if they have that really true, amazing connection. So if he can stay healthy, if he can stay positive, he goes out and has a 80 catch, 1,200 yard, 8 touchdown season and becomes Jordan's go-to target. That's his way onto the roster with a big contract next year. I think anything other than that, they'll have options, right? And maybe that option is still to keep him. Maybe it's to go in a different direction, but it's going to have to be something that he navigates. And there's a good chance he's not on the team. But if he can become Jordan's real true go-to, and it does feel like he has a little bit, meaning Jordan has a little bit more chemistry with Romeo than some of the other receivers, I do think it's still possible that he could stay in Green Bay. I don't know yet. I was actually literally just thinking about that. My mouth was starting to water like 5 seconds ago of like, as soon as I'm done here, I get to go get a bite to eat, but I don't know what I'm having yet. I have been on a diet, getting ready for, beach in Tenerife coming up in a week. So haven't been eating quite as much, but still very excited for dinner. Just don't know what that's going to be at the moment. I did after the car accident and didn't drive afterwards. Gotcha. Gary also used to have a problem maintaining discipline when setting the edge. During that time, he got more sacks. This last year, halfway of the guys more disciplined when attacking the quarterbacks. For perspective, I will say Gary deserves a lot of credit for what he did as a run defender last year. I thought it was really, really good in his best season as a run defender. The pass rush stuff, easy to get, wanting a little bit more, but I thought as a run defender, it was his best season in the NFL. Actually thought Gary had his best season as a edge run defender. That's really, really funny, Ben. I literally did not read that before I said it. So we were very much in lockstep there. Hot take, Watson is off pup by Halloween. Thoughts? I thought you meant Deshaun Watson, going back to that conversation. I'm like, he's out for the year, isn't he? I think it takes longer, and I think they're cautious, and I think Christian's cautious. So I think it's still going to be like week 12, week 13, something like that. If it's before, awesome, great. I just hope it's not rushed back by anyone. I don't think it will be, but I think they're still going to be cautious with it. Worst comes to worst, what happens if we miss the playoffs this season? That's a very different question or different answer depending on if they miss the season at 10-7 and they just barely missed it, tiebreakers, etc., or if they miss it at like 3-14. Those are the different scenarios there. If it's 10-7, they had a good season, just barely missed the playoffs, massively disappointing, but probably nothing of substance. They probably just kind of go back to the drawing board on a couple things. Whatever didn't work the way that they were expecting, they try to course correct in the offseason. I don't think anything crazy happens at quarterback, GM, coach, anything like that, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, couple minor changes here and there, couple additions in the offseason, couple changes, and you try it again next year. Missing the playoffs with a really bad record, a couple people going to definitely be on the hot seat, and you probably have to course correct in some significant way with where the roster's at. Don't see that happen, but it's also a difference if it's like 6-11, but Jordan missed like 3/4 of the year, or like you had a ton of injuries like San Fran last year. That changes things quite a bit as well. So it depends on what that no playoffs season looks like. Steak only, melt some butter on it, carnivore. I just had steak the other night. It was delicious. Went to play bistro for dinner. delicious steak, little chimichurri on top. I'm a big chimichurri guy. Love chimichurri. So chimichurri on anything, I will die for. Chimichurri on a good steak was perfect. Stay cooked any longer than slightly above medium rare is ick. I like mine a little bit above medium rare. I will always order medium rare. If it's a little bit under medium rare, I can still eat it. Although I do like it minimum rare at worst, meaning I eat medium rare a little bit more. And like I said, ideally a little bit more than medium rare. If it comes out medium, still very much enjoy it. And I can still eat it that way. But I always order medium rare for sure. Culver's is got actually, I'm going to save that conversation for another day, but I will take Culver's in that situation. Ben agrees as well. All right, I do got to get out of here, stayed a little bit longer, but I always appreciate all the questions that you guys come with. This was a really great group of questions today, even better group of people. Thank you guys so much for being members. Appreciate it more than you guys know. Allows me to do things like go on vacation in a week and support the family and everything like that. So cannot thank you guys enough. I will be back, not next week with a members only Q&A, but the following week after that. So probably going to be a week and a half, 2 weeks before we get to another one of these, but we'll definitely do one again as quickly as we can when I get back. I will miss you guys, but enjoy your next couple weeks. We'll do it again soon. And until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.